All right, I'd like to welcome you back, or welcome you again for the first time to our series of Catawba traditional arts here at the Native American Studies Center in Lancaster, South Carolina. I'm Dr. Stephen Criswell, the Director of Native American Studies, and we are delighted to have with us today Monty Branham, potter, musician, raconteur, all sorts of things. Again, this event is brought to you, or these events are brought to you by the University of South Carolina Native American Studies Center, Palmetto College, and the support of the South Carolina Arts Commission, who have been very, very generous and very helpful with our program over the years, and we want to express our appreciation to them. So I'm going to turn things over to Monty and let him talk about drumming, flute playing, hopefully do some drumming and flute playing, whatever else he might like to do. So please join me in welcoming Monty Branham. Monty.
All right, thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here today. I want to share a little bit about the musical aspect of our culture. Today I have several different drums displayed, and I'll talk about each one on different levels. Also going to talk about flutes. I have two flutes that I will be playing. One of them will be a traditional river cane flute, which is made from river cane, which is indigenous to this country. And the way you can tell the difference between river cane and bamboo, river cane is pretty much round as far as the cylinder and size. I actually have a stick of bamboo here. It's hard to really find bamboo now. If you're lucky enough to find a patch of bamboo, I mean, you should be sparingly in taking the bamboo. The river cane. Another difference between river cane and bamboo is the growth joints. The growth joints between the two chambers on river cane usually measure anywhere between 12 to about 16 inches in length, where most of the time bamboo has a shorter growth joint in its growth. Another thing about river cane rarely gets much bigger than about 1 inch in diameter, where different bamboos can get a lot bigger. So like I said, I'm going to play two different flutes, just so you can do a comparison as far as the tone. River cane has a lot higher pitch. I'll be playing a red cedar flute that I purchased. Actually, I bought it in Cherokee. I'll start out, first of all, just talking about the flute. And we're going to do the flutes first, and then we'll go to drums. The flute today, we use the flute to make music, to entertain. Many years ago, the flute was actually used as a courting tool. A young man, if he had the skills and gift to be able to play a flute, he would make a flute, and he would have an array of songs that he played. And if there was a young lady within the tribe that he found interesting, caught his eye, that he possibly would like to court, what he would do is go sit in the bushes, or he would hide behind trees. He would find out where this young lady was, and he would hide, and he would play this music in hopes that she would hear it, and then she would search out who it was playing. Well, if she found the player and they started conversation, what the young man would do to court this young lady, since there wasn't really a lot of social public affection shown, what he would do, he would sit outside her lodge in the evening, and he would play music for her. And this is how he would try to win her affection and her love. I'm gonna play my river cane flute first. The song I'll play is called Tide Ki Mont Tu, which is In the Beginning. I'm going to set while they listen. Thank you. Okay, like I said, that was the traditional river cane, and as you can tell, it's sort of a high pitch to it. And while I have your mind focused on this, sort of want to show you how to make, or not really how to make, but the part of the construction that it takes to make a river cane flute. Like I said, you find your river cane, you find your piece of river cane, and you decide actually what piece you want to use. For me, I seem to like this section where you have about 3/4 inch diameter, and you will take and you will cut one end of it off pretty much right above one growth joint, and then you will allow somewhere around 4 to 6 inches above another growth joint, and this is where you would cut it. So basically you would cut your river cane somewhat between where my hands are. And in doing so, you will end up with a piece of cane about like so. All right. Once you do this, a lot of people, the cool thing about doing a river cane flute is you don't have to put a reed in. The growth chamber itself acts as a reed. And what you do, you put holes along here. The first hole will go just on one side of where the growth joint is. The other hole will go on the other side. And as you can see, there's a small channel just above the growth joint. This allows the air to pass from this part of the river cane over into the part where you have the holes to make your nose. So once you do this part here, then you have to make you a cover. And basically your cover is nothing more than a piece of cane itself. And you will take the cane, of course you will take your cover. Your cover, you have to notch it. I didn't have one already notched, but on the one I have here, you can see it's sort of notched about the size of the hole. So this will be notched. And once you notch it, then you fit it up to where it fits, where it will cover the back hole on the short cylinder over to your long part. And then you just take a piece of leather, you'll take a piece of leather and tie it on. And then you can adjust as far as if the cane is either flat or sharp. You can do some adjustments to the tone by positioning your cover. I pretty much have mine set, pretty much know how it lines up to where I know that my cover's where it needs to be. But once again, a lot of people ask me as far as the lengths. Basically, the way I usually make my canes, I'll use my fingers and hand. In this case here, you'll see about the width of my fist is where I've got my hole position. After that, I've got about a knuckle to knuckle between the next two holes. Where I have my first set of holes to my second, they're a little bit wider, but then after that, I get back to about the knuckle to knuckle. But if you wanted to get precise, you can measure it out and do precise measurements and precise holes to play with it, get the sound that you want. So that covers the river cane flute.
Yeah, question. So what does the cover do?
Actually, what the cover does, it traps the air when you blow into the front cylinder, and it creates a passageway to go over into the cylinder where you make your nose. So this is more or less a cover. It just covers your back hole to help direct your wind over into the front cylinder where you get your notes, your musical notes.
How many notes can you get up?
Stephen, that I couldn't tell you. I mean, you can do a different combination. You could run through a scale. So, I mean, with that particular one, and then two, you also have the velocity of air, how much air. That song I played a while ago, I held the same note, but because I changed the velocity of air that I was putting through, I was able to go from a lower note to a higher note.
Okay, so it's both the wind and the amount of air coming through and the holes. It's
yes.
A combination, like a flute.
Yes, like a flute, okay. Basically.
I'm thinking back to band class from high school.
There you go. Well, I was actually in band class. I didn't play a flute. Actually, I played a trumpet when I was younger and loved that. But of course, in band class, in band camp, that old band camp, I mean, we used to pass our trailer instruments, and we tried to learn as many instruments as we could. I remember one of my favorite, like I said, I was a trumpet player, but one of my favorite instruments I liked to play other than trumpet was the saxophone.
Oh.
I really loved the saxophone and that sound, and I think that sort of, through the years as I got older and started getting more into my culture, I think that's sort of what directed me with the flutes there. It's just that sound. And for me, like I said, I started off with a river cane, but then I wanted that lower honking sound. And that's when I went and got me a red cedar flute. Can we open it up if y'all have any questions on river cane, and then we'll jump over onto the other one.
Here's a question now. Did the Eastern Native Americans have different flutes?
Yes, they did. Some tribes, as a matter of fact, a good friend of mine, Arnold Richardson, who's a Holowassa pony, Arnold has a flute that was made in his particular tribe, and it was passed down. He played a flute in one of the movies, and I can't remember which one it was, where he was actually sitting on a cliff, and it was shot like at night. So basically, you seen a silhouette of him, and he was playing this flute. And this flute has been in their people for over, I think at that particular time, somewhere between 300 and 400 years. And I apologize to Arnold if I missed him numbers, but it seems like he told me somewhere around 300 or 400 years that particular flute had been in the tribe. And that's sort of what I wanted to do with my red cedar flute. We don't have a flute that's been in our tribe that's been passed along. So with him sharing, and he shared that with me in 1996. And with him sharing that with me, that's when I decided to get a flute that I too could pass along. And one day there will be a Catawba that will have that interest and will be playing or want to play. And then that's where this flute will be passed to them. I will do something to basically put my mark on it, whether it be my trademark I use for my pottery, or whether it be some other token, but I will add something to this to represent me before I pass it to the next one. But I'm hoping that this flute here will be a flute that will continue to grow and be as around as long as our people will be.
Now, is that one you made?
No, this one here, actually I bought this one in Cherokee. I can't remember the maker's name. But this particular, I played several flutes up there, and this particular one is in the key of F sharp. It's traditionally a 6-hole flute, but I learned and started playing with a 5-hole with the river cane. So I've taken and I cover up my middle hole here to where I'm still playing a 5-hole, and all that does is eliminate one note as far as the scale note. Do you have any? Is there any more questions?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's see. So someone who came in late asked, "Are river cane and bamboo the same thing?"
Yes. No, river cane and bamboo are two different things. As I explained earlier, the thing about river cane and how you can tell a difference, river cane pretty much is perfectly round in a sense. Bamboo, if you ever notice, bamboo will have one little flat. It's got a flat strip that will run from growth joint to growth joint. Like I said, with river cane, there's no flat places on river cane. It's basically about perfectly round. I mean, it might have some oblong shape to it, but still it's more round and doesn't have any flat spots at all.
What we find around the river and streams here, is that invasive bamboo or is that river cane? Or
you would have to, Stephen, you would have to actually look at the plant itself and see if there's a flat place on it or if it's perfectly round, and that's how you can tell. You'll know it's river cane. It's hard to find a lot of river cane on the river. You do find a lot of river reed. Now, river reed doesn't get, much bigger probably. You might be lucky if you find one about the size of your finger exactly, and at that point in time, even at that size, the reed itself will be could be as high as 6 or 7 foot long. Same thing with the river cane. A really good piece of river cane won't be much bigger than about 1 inch in diameter, but it'll be 20 foot tall or better.
Yeah, there's another question here. With the heritage of pottery, were there any flutes or musical instruments made from clay?
Actually, we did have a potter, Brian Sanders. Actually, he made a couple of flutes out of clay, and they were successful. I mean, the thing about the pottery, you always have them elements of the fire and the wind, and they could be a contributing factor on whether the piece itself comes out. So he put a good bit of time. I'm not really sure about his construction method on it, but I do know that he made a couple out of clay, and they were playable flutes, and they had a good sound to them. So yes, there has been potters that have actually sort of used tradition to take it on a different level and produce something besides pottery.
Now, is this a flute or more like an ocarina?
No, this was actually a flute. Actually, the flute he made was probably about the size, maybe not quite as long, about the same size in diameter too. It was about the same size in diameter. But I don't remember how many he made. It was, yeah, very few. I don't think he made much more than maybe, I would say maybe 5 at the max. But he probably didn't make much more than 2 or 3 of them, because I'm sure that it was quite the task to keep the form. First of all, with the clay, as the clay dries, of course, it moves. So for him to be able to maintain that, it was probably quite the task for him to get that all worked out, get the holes and everything like that, where he could actually have a flute that would play.
Yeah. And then, of course, other instruments. We'll talk about the drum.
Yes. We'll get into the drum next. So what I'll do now, just to give a comparison, I am going to play a song on my red cedar flute, and this particular song is called Ishwa, God's Flowing River. This song came to me. I look at all my music, my talents as gifts, and they are. And if we as people look at the things that we're capable of doing, the things we do, especially when it comes to art, music, it is a gift. This particular song was given to me. It came to me during a time that we were starting to lose a lot of our master potters. We were losing those that really held the tradition together and knew what it was and how everything was connected on a spiritual level, especially the pottery and our other traditions. Music's that way. If you talk to a musician and an artist, it's all about the spirit and the soul being able to be projected through the song or through the music itself. And that's the way Native culture is, pretty much in everything we do, but especially when it comes to our arts and our traditions and our culture and our music and even our dance. So I'm going to play this song. Like I said, this is entitled Ishwa, God's Flowing River, and it's to honor our ancestors. Okay, is there any other questions, Stephen?
Yeah, let's see. One just pop, every time you ask if there's a question, one pops up right at that moment. With the personal and social reasons you have stated for the flute music, are you concerned that the contemporary flute is so visually polished with perfectly tuned pitch and scale of Western music?
Repeat that?
Yeah. With the personal and social reasons you have stated for the flute music, the according and so forth, are you concerned that the contemporary flute is so visually polished and with perfectly tuned pitches and scale of Western music? I mean, I guess, do you think that the way we think about flutes now and the sort of polish, I guess, of the classic, we associate it with classical music, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think that takes away at all from this tradition?
Well, I don't think it actually takes away, just because of the way that traditional, as far as indigenous traditional flute music goes, because it's almost haunting.
Yes,
I mean, it's very relaxing, soothing, where your more modern flute seems to be more upbeat, if you will, fast paced. Versus most native traditional music is somewhat on a slower pace, and actually it carries a little bit, to me, it carries a little bit more of the spirit of the song.
Yeah, it's not Jethro Tull.
No, by no means.
Well, yeah, I was sitting here thinking how it's haunting and comforting at the same time, which I guess is just a spiritual thing.
Yes.
Combine those two elements. The other thing is how not so much similar, but not dissimilar from traditional Irish music, the penny whistles and so forth. Some of those old, mostly sad Irish songs. It makes me wonder about when those people came together. You know, the Scots-Irish who were here trying to farm out land and met the Catawbas and the Cherokees and so forth who were playing flutes. If there wasn't some sharing,
and there is another example. I had this black lady. She was an older lady, and I just loved her to death. And she was quite older, and she used to tell everybody that I was a grandson. And I used to take and go and play my flute with her. And she talked about as a child growing up how she would hear that amongst the slaves.
Yeah.
They too had musical instruments and would play these. And a lot of it sort of people talk about the blues and where the blues started, you know. There's a joke in Native communities, you know, the Native American Blues Society started in 1492. So, I mean, you know, I had a t-shirt and I'm trying to find, I want to get me a new one because I done wore that one out. But, you know, once again, it really had to do with I guess you could say, the feelings that were trying to be projected in the music versus, say, traditional versus contemporary or modern. I mean, even though, as I stated earlier, all artists, especially musical artists, their intent is for those that they're performing for to feel the spirit of the music or feel what they're trying to project, whether it be in their lyrics or whether it be in the instrumentation and the presentation of it. So I don't really think, you know, to me that would be sort of like comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
It's sort of hard to compare, but yet they're both one of them sweets that we enjoy partaking of, if you will.
As you mentioned, there is a African American fife and drum tradition. It's not so much around here, more over toward North Alabama, but there's still guys who are playing fife music, playing drum music, and you got to imagine it comes out of a time when they were making flutes out of what was nearby.
What was available, exactly.
A drum and a flute both of these can be made with natural, as opposed to a saxophone.
Exactly,
It's gonna require
exactly. And like you said, too, the time, you're looking at the time, during the time, which, you know, I look at my flutes, and I mean, even though, this river cane, and the reason that I have this piece of wrap on it is, it seemed like after about 10 years I had it, I was had done a presentation somewhere and was putting stuff in my vehicle and shut the door, and I cracked it. And it has such a nice sound, I hated to throw it away. So I just sewed me a piece of leather on it to keep it from breaking anymore, and it still pretty much maintained the sound, and plus it makes it airtight where the air is still actually flowing through versus escaping where it had got the crack.
Another question here. Are there archaeological records of musical instruments or other records of music? I'm guessing among the Catawba or among Carolina Native people.
Well, now, when it comes to archaeological records, I'm not really sure about, just like when it comes to documentation on, a perfect example would be our language. Since we didn't have a written language, you know, and we didn't have a language that we actually wrote down to document ourselves. The majority of our historical knowledge when it comes to these type things, music, songs, and all this was an oral history. Most all native or indigenous people of this country have oral traditions. That some are a lot more or better documented than what Catawba are, but on the same token, even through a lot of that documentation, some of the actual traditions when it comes to their practices on ceremonies and rituals, if you will, is basically kept in an oral fashion versus a documented fashion.
Well, I mean, we do know we had there were recordings of Chief Sam Blue recordings, corn song, and
Exactly.
that sort of thing, and those did get documented before he passed in the
Yes,
50s.
yes,
And there are some elders, I think, alive today who still know snippets of some of those songs.
Yes.
They weren't flute, they were sung. But,
Yeah.
So that it does live in the oral tradition to the point where we have an interview that Dr. Bloomer did with, I think it was Manola Campbell.
Okay.
And she sings a song, green corn song, I think,
Yeah.
that Sam Blue was recorded singing. And it sounds like How You Walk Me.
Well, actually, I think Nola shared that song with me.
She told Dr. Bloomer she didn't know what the words meant,
Yeah.
and that she never, learned the language, and so she just knew it.
But basically, that has to do more with the goose or wild goose song,
Wild Goose. Okay.
because of the sound that the goose makes. So the song itself, like I said, Nola, I had the pleasure and the honor of being able to participate and escort Miss Nola Campbell to the 150th anniversary of the Smithsonian Folklore Festival. And during that time, she shared that song with me, and it was a song, and it did, like you said, the song itself, it sort of went like this. It was like, Hi-oh, Watney, watchin' Watney, oh, Watney, hi-oh, Watney, oh, Watney, watchin' Watney, oh, Watney, hi-oh, Watney, oh, Watney, watchin' Watney, oh, Watney, hi-oh, Watney, oh, Watney, watchin' Watney, oh, Watney. And then it would go, yo, 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 way, hey, way, and so forth, and then it repeated.
The recording with Nola is great because she gets to the end as she's singing and she goes, and that's enough.
And that's I thoroughly, those are treasures, my time with her, like I said, in Washington, D.C. in '96. Those are really treasured memories for me. Sharing things like that, and also being able to her sharing her pottery knowledge and skills with me during that time. And she was another one of those elders, if you will, in the community that took me in on teaching me and sharing some of these things that both were and were not undocumented. But just having that time, it helped me become who I am today. I had a lot of those opportunities with different elders in our tribe, and you would spend time with them or be with them for one reason, but there was always life lessons attached to whatever time you spent with them, and that's something that I really cherish and am honored to have been able to do.
We have one of our viewers here, Brooke Bauer. I think you know her. When John Lawson came through this region in 1701, he documented men using handheld drums and large clay pot drums, not sure about flutes. So there is some documentation there. And then we have a question, being handmade, do you find that each flute you make has a nature of its own personality?
Yes, and thank you, Brooke. She's our historian. So Brooke, I thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And yes, each flute does, depending on the size of the river cane itself, depending on the size you use. You can use a whole stick pretty much from one end to the other, but each size has a different pitch to it. The smaller you get in diameter, the higher pitch it becomes. The larger diameter you get a little bit lower pitch. And then each flute, not in just pitch wise, but just in shape alone. Because the flute itself, and you could try to spend time to straighten it out to where it would be perfectly straight, but none of them are perfectly straight. And it goes back to that question you asked earlier about the polished of the modern flute versus this. It's not supposed to be perfect. We as humans aren't perfect, or we looked at as supposed to be. Same thing with the flute. It doesn't have a perfect shape. But to me, I mean, I look at this and it's one of the prettiest little flutes, I mean, for its age, that I've ever seen or actually ever made. And I don't make a lot of flutes. I actually had an opportunity one time, and I don't remember the year, forgive me, I'm telling my age now, that happens. But one particular year, I was invited by Columbia University. The governor, I think it's called a governor scholarship summer program or something for gifted and talented kids.
Oh, it's a governor's school.
Governor's school, yeah, but it was a summer. It was a summer thing. So I was invited to come down for my music and actually for my flute. And I actually carried enough river cane down there and I taught 68 students how to make river cane flutes. And out of 68, there was only 4 that couldn't get their flute to where, it was actually a playable flute that you could hear the notes and all. So what I did, actually, I come home and we had like a week between my visits. I made those 4 kids 4 flutes. So they actually got 4 flutes with my trademark on them. But I was blown away in awe because these students, like I said, they're gifted children, and so they approached the program director about at the end of the session doing a concert for me, and there was several Several of them teamed up as pairs, and this is how gifted these children were. They had river cane flutes that they made. There was these two little boys actually got together and played the tune from Mission Impossible. And I mean, it blew my mind, you know. I was like, my Lord.
Oh yeah, that's
and probably
sharp notes in that
exactly, exactly. I mean, and they're having to duel, sort of duel too. So it was really amazing. But out of that concert, probably one of the most memorable. There was this one little girl, and bless her heart, if she weighed 50 pounds wet, that's giving her a compliment. But she had come up with this little song called "The Tree Frog," and I don't know if she had researched our people or not, but we actually have a story about the tree frog and its singing, and she played that little song "Tree Frog," and I mean, it really spoke to me. But it also, what it gave me was that opportunity to connect to those students and actually give them opportunity to connect to me and to this tradition and culture. And so it's really a memorable experience and one that I'll always remember. Let's see if we got any more questions. I don't know time-wise.
We're doing okay. We probably should talk about drums in a second.
Yeah.
We've got, does Monty still teach how to make flutes, and does that include teaching non-natives?
I haven't taught, I haven't showed any, those children. That class was the last ones that I had actually done that was non-natives. And I have spent some time with some students up at Winter in their music department and showed them. But I mean, I do show how to, I mean, it's not that hard, but you know, I have helped people make flutes, make their own.
So this isn't like the pottery, it's something that you don't teach.
Not when it comes to the flute and that. And just like any other thing though, it's one thing to have someone make it for you, but like a flute, it carries something special if you make it yourself, because then it actually will capture a part of you and your spirit, and that's what will also help project the music that you play.
Well, we may have to talk about a flute making class over here. I'm sitting here thinking about I live right off Gills Creek, and there's something growing out there. I'm gonna have to go see if it's bamboo or reed. I'm probably not allowed to harvest it, but I'm not gonna say anything. But this got me intrigued. Okay. And then a comment here, the river cane flute sounded beautifully, and the pitches were most interesting. Appreciate your reply of perfection and student stories. So just compliments there. Okay. Good. So you want to talk about drums?
Yes. So let's talk about drums for a few minutes. Okay. I'm gonna start off with sort of follow up to what Dr. Fowler talked about. Traditionally, when it comes to our people, we've done what they call a water drum. We would actually take a piece of pottery, and this particular piece of pottery, I find it's pretty cool because Brooke responded. This is actually a pot that I had purchased from Brooke. So I thought about, I'm like, well, I need to show what a traditional drum for Catawba would be. And basically it's called either a pot drum or water drum. And
why water drum?
Water drum. What they would do, they would take their bowl or their pot, their drum, if you will, and they would put water in it. Then they would tie the hide on, and then you'd turn the hide upside down to where it would get wet. All right, and getting wet, and we'll talk about that also on the other drums that we have, but getting wet, it makes the leather more pliable. So you will let it soak till it gets good and wet, and then you would stretch the hide even tighter and tighten it with your leather to keep it tight. And the cool thing about a water drum or pot drum is the unique sound it makes. It actually makes like a dripping water sound, if you will, like a doink, 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 but it carries, I had a pot drum that I made that I used to use, and you could go down to the river and play it, and you could hear it just echo for miles. So, and of course that particular drum was probably, my drum was about the size of this, and you can see the size of this one. But you can also imagine a drum the size of, say, the one I have sitting over here on the floor in the stand. A drum that size would be like, you see the drums. I sort of think about the drums like back in, you see these movies of the Roman drums where they've got these huge pieces of, and they've got to be some type of ceramic, and that they've got skins on their place. So you can imagine if you had a big enough pot with a nice size hide on it, it would make a nice sound. It would make a really nice sound.
But it makes me think of those, you mentioned the Romans where they're on the rowboats, and there's the one guy.
The one guy, exactly, the one guy doing that. And it's funny you mentioned that, because actually that was one of the songs I was going to do, was our Catawba song, and I was going to explain that. Because they probably did have that, especially when they was making long journeys on the river.
Yeah.
They probably did have someone that played a drum to keep them in rhythm, because they didn't paddle. They actually poled the boats, because of the river being shallow like it was. They would have these long poles, and they would rhythmically pole the river.
So you need a rhythm.
You would have need a rhythm. Once again, this is, like I said, when it comes to your water drum or pot drum that was a traditional drum for our people, you would have your pottery with your hide and tie your leather. Like I said, you'd have your water and your stick. I didn't put water in this pot just because I don't want, like I said, this is one of them ad-lib things. Inside joke, people. But
so, I mean, does it have almost like a cowbell sound almost?
No. Like I said, it's got more like a boom, boom, boom.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's really like a high pitch, and it's not like
like the small sound of a bongo drum, maybe that kind of.
Maybe. I'm gonna have to make one next.
Because it's called water drum because the water was inside of it, and the different pitches depends on how much.
Right.
How much water? Yeah, exactly. You could control the pitch by the amount of water in the drum itself.
So in theory, you could make several of them with several
Oh,
different amounts of water,
and have a whole scale,
kit.
and have a whole different scale of drums. Exactly, just on the amount, just like with glasses.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Whenever they would do the glass thing, depending on how much water, would have the different pitch. Same thing with your water drum. Other drums, okay. This is a little small handheld drum. I use this little drum most of the time when I'm doing things. If you have a ring, Becky was kind enough to share and bring a few items where you can see what one looked like unmade. But basically you have your ring, and the rings can be made out of different things, different sizes. This is a ring here. This is made out of cedar. The drum I have on the stand on the floor over there, that's a ring. And actually that particular drum is one of the oldest drums we have on the reservation. That drum's, if it's not 30 years old, it's closely approaching it. And it's actually made out of an old water rain barrel. We took a rain barrel and we cut and we made two drums. This is one of a pair. The other one, actually, we used it as a water drum. We put a plug in it. It had a bottom on it, solid bottom on it. we put a plug on it and put a hide on it to where we could actually fill it up with water and use it the same way as we would a pot drum or ceramic drum. So depending on your ring, I mean, you'll get your ring and then your rawhide. You have to get you some rawhide or deer hide, elk hide, bear hide, whatever you wanted to use. Most of the rawhides we use don't have hair. I have seen drums that they have used hides that have hair on it, which actually softens the sound. You get into these sounds and things of that nature. But you take this rawhide and you see as it's dry, it's pretty stiff. So we'll take the rawhide and basically we'll soak it. And we'll soak it for days to where it will get pliable. You also have to have you some strips of the rawhide. Once again, you have to soak these too. I like soaking anytime I'm doing a drum. Most of the time I'll soak my hides about 7 days. To get color on it, I mean, you could do a vast number of things. What we would do to get our color, would use black walnut shells, dried black walnut shells, old oak leaves, you know, maybe different pieces of wood, and put it in with the rawhide while it's soaking, and that will give it some of the color that you see on the drums. But you will take in, once it soaks over a period of time, you'll take in, and a lot of times I'll cut my rawhide prior to it. And in doing a drum, you'd like to go at least an inch all the way around, overhang on it. And I say an inch because if you do an inch, once it becomes pliable, gets wet, and you start stretching, that inch can grow. And if you've got a ring of this size here, if you was to do much more than that, you really wouldn't have room to do your stitching to tighten your hide on. So you would measure, like I said, you'd mark it, cut it to where it's about an inch inside. Always cut and mark and punch holes before soaking. That way it's a lot easier to work with whenever your rawhide or your hides are somewhat hard versus being pliable and wet. But you'll take and put the hide on, take and lace it up, and then you start stretching. And on a big drum, actually we've done drums, I've done drums in summer camp. On big drum, we used to take and we would get the smallest child that we had present. And we would get it laced up, the initial lace, we'd do the initial lace, and then we would have the small child walk around on the drum to help stretch it. And actually we had a young lady, Morgan Webster. We actually named her Drum Walkers because when she was a small little girl, I don't even remember how old Morgan was then, but she was in our program and she was our smallest child, so she was our drum walker. And she walked some drums. I mean, during that summer camp, we made several for the different groups. But I hope she's listening to where that'll bring back a memory for her, because those were really special times. But you stretch it, you do what you have to stretch it. If you don't have a small child to walk on it, you know, you can't just push on it, and then you will tighten your strapping. You will pull your straps tight and you keep working it. And you do that several times. I usually do it like 4 times on each side, and then do the final cinching, and then hang it and let it dry. And then once it dries, of course, it tightens up, and then that's when you get the tight fit around your drum and the stitching and all, and it also gives you the sound for your drum. So I'm gonna play two different songs on two different drums. The first one I'm gonna do will be on my little hand drum. I'm gonna do the song that we was talking earlier about the canoe. Our people used to pole the canoes, and they had a song that they sang in doing so. So I'm gonna sing the Catawba canoe song. And there are different size drums. The big drum you see here is what people call a powwow drum. Of course, you put many people around this drum, and you can really, the good thing about it is, you know, we're taught as long as the drum beats, the heart of our people will stay alive and beat, and vice versa. As long as the heart beats, is there any questions, Stephen, about what so far?
Let's see. Please, would you tell the word meanings? I guess the translation.
Basically, the first part of it is sort of nonsense syllables. Ihona has to do with nonsense syllable. And Yamain is the Catawba word for the boat or the canoe. And basically, so you're saying the boat, you might re-rate, so you're saying the boat or the canoe is good. So that's just basically what the song's saying, because you got to figure that was their transportation.
Yeah.
That was their means of transporting goods, also supplies, things, food. I mean, it was their way of travel. So they sang this song to basically singing out
The stick that you're using, is it, it looks almost like a cattail. Is that intentional?
No, actually, the stick, this particular stick's done with a little small piece of, it's like a little wooden dial, and then underneath, I have a piece of cloth. Actually, I have a piece of cloth that I have up underneath here, wrapped around. And then it's just sewed, it's a piece of leather that I have sewed real tight on it and seaweed tied around. But no, it's leather, it's not cattail, it's shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Just some complaints about me knocking the microphone over.
Yeah,
I think we got it back.
good job, good job.
Well, this is my first week as a cameraman, so.
There you go. There you go. Well, what I want to do now, I'm gonna play this drum. Like I said, this drum has a lot of, if you will, spirit to it. This drum was one of the first ones that we built on the reservation when we started coming together as a group and singing. This drum has the spirit of a lot of people that are still with us today, but also the spirit of a few that has passed, in particular, one particular elder, Guy Garcia, Sabahe, they call him Sabahe, the ancient one. Mr. Guy loved being around the drum. I don't know why they give me that off, I guess. But Mr. Guy loved music. He loved all aspects of it. Mr. Guy's thing was he had a gourd rattle. Mr. Guy believed in his gourd rattles. That too was part of our tradition custom. We had gourd dance, gourd rattle dance. But Mr. Guy loved being around the drum, and he assisted in making this drum. And it was funny. We made these drums, and since Mr. Guy was the elder in the group, everyone, was saying, well, Mr. Guy, since you're the elder, you're the one should basically be the drum keeper. You're the one should keep it. Mr. Guy nicknamed me early. He called me Loud Mouth. Because when we were singing, the thing about drumming is singing. A lot of times you feel the spirit of the drum, you feel the spirit of the song, of your ancestors, of those that are here and those that have passed. So when you're singing, you're projecting that, you feel that, and that's part of who I am. I had another elder, Red Thundercloud. The voice the name he gave me after many years spending time with him, the voice or the name he gave me was Thunder Voice. He said that my voice reminded him of thunder. It was strong and powerful, very demanding attention, but on the same token, calm and soothing in the words that I spoke. So I think about these things now, especially after, in this case, both of these elders and people that were special in now that they're gone. And I really honor them in who I am today. All those, like I said, Miss Nola, there was many more throughout my life on the reservation. In my early years, it really instilled things into me that I don't guess really come about until as I got older. And now that I think about it more and more, I really fully understand the things that they were teaching and giving me, and I cherish these things. Music, once again, that canoe song, like I said, that's a song that's been passed down. We talked a little bit earlier about the song that Noah shared, that particular song, but there are songs that have been handed down and have been sung from generation to generation. But like all other music, each or some, not each generation, but you have generations that come along and they have music that they have to offer that introduce into the tribe and becomes a part of the culture and tradition. Culture and tradition, what is it? Actually, it's either an individual or event that occurred that becomes reoccurring, and it's acknowledged as such. So culture and tradition actually changes as time itself changes and as generations change and grow. So for me, like with my flute music, I've been gifted and blessed with some drum songs too through the years. In the beginning, it seemed like they were sort of going hand in hand. It seems like either the flute would come first and then it would come to the drum, or I'd do a drum song and it would go to the flute. So through the years, I've had different songs that sort of intertwined, or it gets to that term, all my relations that indigenous people use. It has that connection, how it's all connected together, how it all sort of comes together and forms as one. But I want to sing this song here. This particular song, I like it. It's a round, what I call a round dance song. And it's one that mentions our people, it mentions our young people, our older people, and even the ancient ones. So this is the Catawba round dance song. it's a couple song. It's a couple song. And you do, you know, you dance in a circle, and you have, it's sort of, they would compare the round dance as a native or an indigenous square dance.
It's all two-step.
Yeah, two-step. I mean, that's it, two-step. Like I said, a square dance. I mean, it's basically the same thing. But yeah, the Catawba round dance was that song.
So was drumming traditionally sort of multiple occasions? What, I mean, a lot of times when we think of native drumming, you know, it's religious primarily.
Yeah.
But then nowadays it's got the powwow element. It's got the, you know, it's entertainment, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, has it always served different purposes?
Well, and there's different purposes for drumming, just like different drums, depending on what you're doing, whether you're doing individual songs or individual music drumming. And it depends on what you're doing it for. If you're doing it for the spirituality aspect of it, and there's certain songs and certain ways that it's done. Ceremonial, different ceremonies have specific songs that are used in both their rhythm and also in the song itself, how it's presented. And then, like you said, when it comes to powwows, you know, are gatherings, and so there's specific music that is used for those things also. And there are music and songs that are basically honor songs, if you will. Honor songs and things of that nature are songs that are done to honor for different reasons. But honor songs are those songs that basically are held sort of sacred, if you will, when it comes to recording or filming those particular songs. Most honor songs aren't allowed to be recorded or filmed.
What about warfare? Right? Were drums a part of warfare?
Yeah, well, drums, actually, Catawbas were known to actually sing as they went into battle. They would, figured they'd kill them with the voices. But no, actually, the Catawba warriors actually used to sing whenever they would go into war. And they done this to let their enemy know that they was coming and they was ready for battle.
And coming in numbers.
Exactly. Now, I mean, I don't know how most people feel, but if I had a bunch of people that was coming to fight me, if they singing and beating drums and carrying on instead of trying to sneak up, I'd start thinking about my position. Really, who's got the upper hand here? I mean, it ain't like they sneaking, they announcing it. You can hear them. And the thing about it is, they would sing at the top of the lungs. It was told, you know, once again, the oral tradition part, that, you know, you could hear them coming for just miles and miles away.
But do Catawba songs have that? There's that sort of higher range vocalization that we often think about with native music.
Yes. There's different, they call that, especially on the powwow circuit, they call that northern. Northern's a really high pitch, more or less, I mean, just off the chart as far as the level, the notes that they hit. You know, them guys that sing northern. My voice, you can tell, ain't no way I can sing northern. I mean, my voice alone ain't
it's Bee Gees level.
Exactly, but you know, most of your southern tribes and your eastern tribes, I'd say probably south from Virginia south, sing what they call southern. It's more of a lower tone, lower octave level, and two, there's a little bit of a difference also. Most of your southern songs are a little bit slower than your northern songs. Your northern songs tend to seem to have a little bit faster pace to them, even though we do have some southern songs that are fast paced. I have one particular song that I do whenever I do a presentation or program for children. is this Yehon Sari, the Little Wild Indians, the Little People song that I sing. And the tradition of the Little Peoples have their tricksters and jokesters, and I tell a story to sort of put the children, sort of get their minds set and picture themselves being a part of this. And it actually speeds up as it goes along, like the little trick that they will pull. And it's pretty fun watching, because in that particular song with the small children, once you get their mind where they can picture themselves being amongst these little Indians, these little people, if you will. Once they put themselves there, as the drumming starts, you can see them, they'll be patting their foot and bouncing their head, you know. As it speeds up, they get a little bit more and more. And then usually around towards the end of the song, you would almost think they was, you know, having some type of seizure. You could see just the energy level on. So whenever I do programs, I usually try to do that song early, and then I'll come back with the flute to bring them back, calm them back down. Yeah, it's
for
just,
the parents.
yes. And it also, when it comes to the songs, drum songs, depending on what style of dancing, a lot of times we'll dictate a particular song that's sang or used. And too, with the ceremonies, certain ceremonies carry certain songs that are attached to them.
I want to clarify in case folks aren't familiar with the Little People. So these are the Catawba
Leprechauns.
equivalent to leprechauns, for lack
Exactly.
of a better term.
It's
They're larger than fairies, but smaller than leprechauns.
Well, there you go. Larger than fairies, smaller than
yeah,
leprechauns.
true.
So you can identify one if you come across it.
Yeah, most definitely. But yeah, you know,
They're tricksters, though.
They're tricksters. They're tricksters. They're also protectors, though, too. Once again, through oral history and oral traditions that's been shared with me through the years. The Little People tend to sort of migrate and hang around those that are medicine people and spiritual people. And they tend to hang around these people sort of to, if you will, keep them in check, to be sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing and acting in the way that they're supposed to act. But it's often said that, you know, the Little People, they used to always talk about how the Little People would always sort of go after the little boys because they were mean, you know, and always cutting up. They always felt like that's who the, but on the same token, little girls or women that walk through the woods, if they're walking through the woods or walking down a trail and decided to blue, all of a sudden it seems like your hair gets caught up in a limb out of nowhere. They say that's the Little People. Yeah, coming into play.
Clarification question. What is the high pitched singing called? And you said that's northern.
It's called northern, yeah. Northern.
Yeah,
it's called northern singing.
So we have any other questions? Do we have any basic questions? All right, let's see. Well, have you taught drum making to others?
No, the only drum making actually I taught, Steve, and we, like I said, we used to, when I was in basically the program or the cultural director or coordinator with our summer camp and our after school programs. When I was involved directly with them, that's something we used to do at the beginning of every camp. Every camp we would take, and we would, each particular group would make a drum for that particular group, and it'd be their drum. Now, a lot of those children are adults now, have children of their own. And it seems like today on the reservation, that particular group now has migrated to another level. A lot of them are involved when it comes to our sweat lodge, participating in our sweat lodge ceremonies. Also, they have their interests and desire when it comes to our culture has risen to another level. And part of that is they want their children to have that knowledge and those experiences. So, you know, hopefully one day, we'll have an opportunity, you know, once again to get back to where we're teaching them how to make a drum. Whether it be start, you know, even as far as pottery, making a water drum, you know, teaching them the tradition and of the pottery and then being able to use it, or actually making a larger scale drum. But hopefully one day we'll get back to where we'll be able to do that.
Let's see, anything else here? I had another question, but it slipped my mind. So I was listening to you talk there. Well, it's wonderful to have you here, and you're just a great talent. And if I know you don't make a lot of pottery and other things, but if folks were interested in getting in touch with you or purchasing any of your work, is that a possibility?
Yeah. Actually, I actually have a pottery page on Facebook. It's called Catawba Pottery Buy and Sell. I showcase my work there. Of course, the page is open for any of our tribal members to be able to showcase their work and sell the work. It's also, the page is there for people that might have pieces that are in question, or people might have pieces that they've come about that they're wanting to get rid of. You know, in this case, some of your best collectors of Catawba pottery are Catawbas themselves.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any of us that don't appreciate or cherish a piece of pottery from whoever we can get it from. So I do have that. I am working on getting the web page set up. I've got someone, actually, Brent Watts, the tribal members, helping me get me a web page set up for these other things that I also do. But I'm not hard to find. If you come to the reservation, ask for Monty, anybody can tell you. I do. My email is Monty Branham, all lowercase, at gmail.com.
It's BRANHAM.
BRANHAM. Yes, sir. So I can be reached that way. I don't really want to give out my phone number.
Yeah,
reach out to me. And then
yeah, this is going on Facebook.
Yeah,
so who knows?
yeah. Reach out to me, then we'll exchange numbers.
Well, all right. I think that's about it. We don't have any further questions. We will be wrapping up our traditional arts series, Catawba Traditional Arts Series, on Monday at 5 p.m. with Becky Garris, who will be talking about pine needle baskets, and I'm sure a whole host of other things. It seems most Catawba artists are multi-genre artists, so there's always a little something else in there as well. And hopefully Becky will talk maybe a little bit about the language as well. But Monty, we really appreciate you being here. It's great to have you back at the center. Hopefully in the near future, we'll have you back with an audience here that we can all be safe and enjoy your music and discussions together. But I think that's it. And we will hopefully see you folks on Monday at 5. Thanks again for logging on and participating in this event. Again, we want to thank the South Carolina Arts Commission, University of South Carolina at Lancaster, and Palmetto College. All right, thanks. Everybody have a good weekend.
Thanks.